What's going on, y'all? So the other day I was thinking about this whole idea of being successful, and it's measured different ways, right? And a lot of us are continuously on that journey to become more and more successful. So as I get older and as I get more mature, I think about one secret that has allowed me time after time to continue to unlock a new level of success that most people don't have the ability to get. And that's the ability to have a strong level of integrity and basically being true to oneself personally and professionally, and being able to do that time and time again. So today I want to talk to you guys about some of the ways that I've learned how to stand in my truth and also be more successful while doing that. So let's get into it. So y'all, check this out. I'm just sitting here chilling at the crib, grabbing a cup of coffee. I'm gonna have some coffee while we talk here today. And I just wanted to talk about this topic because it's something that me and a lot of my really close friends talk about quite often. And having and being true to oneself, having a strong sense of integrity, being a good person, overall good person, your delivery, your energy, your communication style, all is so important if you're looking to really unlock that next level of success that comes along in life, I feel like, because you're going to be put into a lot of different opportunities or a lot of different situations. You're going to be put into a lot of different situations where, you know, you're going to get tested. And as they say, all money ain't good money. I feel like that same way as I start to think about relationships and people. All people aren't good people. They may come off or they may look like good people, but at the core, I start to analyze that as I begin to be put into new situations and new opportunities. So something I've learned since I was very small, my mom taught me this, but I feel like it was reinforced as I began to really just meet like-minded people, and that's to treat people with respect. So treating people with respect, I feel like goes such a long way. And it's mainly because at the end of the day, most people don't recognize that most people aren't technically good people. So if you are treating someone with respect, whether that is the CEO of a company or whether that's the janitor who works at the company and cleans the company up, I typically treat those people the same way. I wave at them and say hello. I say excuse me. I use my manners. I'm polite. I don't treat someone lower just because they have a certain class, whether that's a certain race, whether that's a certain wage that they make, whether that is someone who is single or not married or in a relationship. I tend to try and treat everyone with a certain level of respect. And that's mainly because that's the way I like to be treated. And I feel like that's important as you are beginning to lean into, again, your integrity. So something else that's not talked about often is the whole idea of keeping your word. Although I feel like it's this whole discussion or whole thing that people talk about, talk is cheap, which it kind of is cheap, right? It's really about action. I like to think about action, but I feel like there's a certain level of goodness that comes with keeping your word. If you tell someone that you're gonna do something, do it. And if you can't do it, don't just be flaky about it and not say anything to them. Like, it's okay to say, hey, you know what? I said I was gonna make it, but you know what? I can't make it. I feel like keeping your word is something that's so underrated, and the more that you do it, people will begin to hold you in such a high regard. And when people hold you in a high regard, it just opens so many doors and so many opportunities for yourself that most people don't even recognize. I've seen it myself, and it has opened a lot of doors for me. So also this whole idea of keeping your word, I think is important to talk about getting back with people. And when I say that, so most people that I communicate with on a normal, I would say week to month basis, as you would call it, I don't talk to a lot of people on the phone, but if someone has my contact information and they contact me, I don't like to let a message just linger. If someone reaches out to me, or I have a mentee, or I have a client, or I have anyone who reaches out to me for anything, I don't like the idea of not getting back to people. I feel like when you start to not get back to people, and my timing, I would say, is probably 2 to 3 days at most that and again, if I'm very busy and I know I can't get back to someone, meaning calling them back or even sending them a quick message, hey, you know what, I'm real busy right now, can't really talk, get some coffee, or let's sit down and talk about whatever it is that we're gonna interface and talk about, right? I don't like the idea of just leaving people hanging. It's just kind of rude. And going back to treating people with respect, I know a new young CEO who is a multimillionaire, and we talk about this often, and I feel like it's afforded him a lot of really good opportunities. It's also afforded me a ton of opportunities. So another item I'll say is this whole idea of facing conflict head on. So when you think about doing business, when you think about building relationships, when you think about all of that, I feel like it's inevitable that there is going to be some level of conflict. So when there is conflict, I feel like it's important to face that head on, resolve it, and do something I like to call closing the loop, which means if you had this conflict with this person, you apologized about it and just kind of turned it a blind eye and thought that everything was okay. Most times that's not enough. There are a lot of times where you need to kind of dig and kind of understand the why behind the conflict. Making sure that person is good, I feel like it's also an underrated thing. Now, granted, there's going to be a lot of conflicts that you're not going to be able to resolve, and not everyone is open to being transparent and displaying or opening up to people like most people are. So with that being said, no situation is going to be 100% perfect, but I think it's important to try. So something else I think is important is the whole idea of not compromising on your values. A lot of us have a certain value roadmap. You have a certain values that you feel are important. Treating people with respect, making sure that, when you walk in a room, you speak to people when you are in a room that you're unfamiliar with. If you meet someone for the first time, you introduce yourself, or if you're with someone that doesn't know everyone, you're going to introduce them. Values. A lot of us have values. I think that it's important to understand what your values are, understand what you feel is important, what you feel like that are values that you don't agree with, and stand in that. I'll tell you what I'm starting to see a trend of on the internet is this whole idea of putting people down. Now, granted, as they say, a clock is right twice a day. Is that how it goes? A broke clock is wrong, or a broke clock is right twice a day. That's what the saying goes, right? So there are people on the internet right now that are working really hard to put people down, especially those people that are very successful. More specifically, it's a lot of black women that they put down on the internet. I don't like it, right? And so where I'm going with that is within my value is that I have a wife who's a black woman, and we have a kid on the way. My kid could be a black girl, right? So when it comes to putting down black women on the internet, I don't necessarily agree with that. And I'm okay with standing firm and talking about that because that's part of my value. Something else I think about is how a lot of these elements that I'm talking about, a lot of it will typically resonate more with someone who is very ethical, having a strong sense of integrity, being someone that's pure at heart and has good intentions. A lot of this conversation is going to resonate more with those types of people versus the latter. And what I've always heard a lot of times going through life is people always say the nice guy finishes last. And when it comes to integrity, people usually compare the nice guy to the person who has a high sense of integrity. And I really don't care that a lot of people don't really respect the nice guy. I've been okay with being a nice guy growing up. And, you know, I've had times where I've been bullied in my past, but you know, growing up in Detroit, growing up on the east side of Detroit, and throughout time, people began to respect me more for it. And so I say all that to say to you that it's okay to be a nice person. It's okay to have respect for people. It's okay to have a certain level of integrity. It's okay to hold true to that. You know, another conversation right now that a lot of people, I feel like, are kind of jumping past is this whole idea that you are who you associate with. And you'll see a lot of this discussion when you look at what's happening in, let's say, in the NFL with football, or in the NBA with basketball, or you'll see this happen a lot of times when you're thinking about celebrities and brands, and what's happening with Kanye West and how, you know, he talked a certain way about certain types of people, and the brand Adidas didn't want to be associated with Kanye West again, right? And so you are who you associate with, because a lot of these big corporations and people with the big pocketbooks that I mentioned, they understand that quite well. That's on a macro level. But when I think about this on a micro level, when I think about it with relationships, again, I brought up that example about Black women, and, you know, you wouldn't necessarily find me hanging out with someone who just puts down Black women. That's just not something I would do. I don't agree with that. You wouldn't see me hanging out with someone who is racist or classist. I really don't associate myself with those types of people. I look at myself as being a child of God, as they say, and being a child of God, I love all people, right? But there is a group of people who don't love all people, and that's not someone or those people I don't necessarily associate with. So that is my value. That's what I stand firm in. That's what I hold true to. So today, I just wanted to get on here and talk about that, because I feel like it's a very underrated conversation. It's one that a lot of people aren't having. And I feel like it's one that's important, as a lot of us are maturing into new money, new bags, right? New opportunities, new businesses, new jobs, new friendships, new relationships. Because there is this dark cloud right now on the internet and in the world that is trying to take the good and make them the bad, right? And I don't like that. So I wanted to talk to you guys about that. My name is Sean Harness. If you found value in this video, be sure to like it, be sure to share, and also join the channel, subscribe, so you know when I get ready to post new content. Until then, peace out, y'all. We out.